So, the fossil Pokemon. What do we all think of them? As a paleontology student, I love them to bits. As someone who likes to play competitive Pokemon for fun, they make me sad. Well, most of them. It's clear not all Pokemon are created equally when it comes to their battle prowess, and that is unfortunately the case for many of the fossil Pokemon that have been introduced throughout the franchise's history. So why not do what any competitive Pokemon player does and propose some buffs and additions to make them more viable in the current generation? Sounds like a good time, right? But I'll be honest. Just listing off and explaining potential buffs for each Pokemon has been done countless times already, and I want to stand out a bit from the crowd. So instead, I'll list off and explain potential buffs for each Pokemon, according to what we know based on scientific literature. Some more than others, admittedly, but I wanted to use this as an opportunity to do some science communication and use said SciComm as inspiration for how to improve these funky little guys in a unique and nuanced way. It's honestly quite fun when you get the hang of it. We'll be going through these in National Dex order, starting off with Omastar, the Spyro Pokemon. Praise Lord Helix. Omastar is a versatile dual rock and water type that can be played in several different ways thanks to its good stat spread and access to a laundry list of tools and abilities at its disposal. It can invest into defense and use its key resistances to check physical threats with shell armor to avoid critical hits, act as a suicide lead to set up hazards with a focus sash and weak armor to raise its speed when hit by a physical attack, clean up weakened teams with one of the best setup moves in the game, Shell Smash, and, most famously, abuse the rain weather condition to drown and sweep teams with its final ability, Swift Swim. Even as of Generation 9, Omastar is the strongest special attacking Swift Swim Pokemon, a title it has held ever since abilities have been introduced in Ruby and Sapphire 22 years ago. It has historically been a great lower tier Pokemon, but as of the more recent generations, Omastar's drawbacks have been becoming increasingly more noticeable, and competition for its aforementioned playstyles have been becoming very stiff. In fact, it shares its dual typing and ability Swift Swim with, wow, 4 other fully evolved Pokemon, 2 of which are also in this video. Omastar's biggest drawbacks are its weaknesses to common attacking types, especially grass, and its poor 55 base speed, as alluded to in its Pokédex entries. Even after a Shell Smash, or with Swift Swim active, it is still outsped by Choice Scarf users over 90 base speed, severely hampering its ability to clean up weakened teams. Still, its power cannot be denied, especially under rain boosting its water-type attacks before stab. But getting the chance to fire off its attacks is a challenge without ample support. So, how do we help it? This is where the whole referencing scientific literature thing comes in. We can look into the biology of Omastar's primary inspirations, ammonoids and cephalopods in general, to form ideas to be translated into gameplay. Ammonoids were an insanely diverse group of animals and were extremely abundant throughout their long evolutionary history, to the point that their leftover shells can be used as indexes to date the layers of rocks they are found in. The best understood members of this group are the true ammonites, ones that lived during the Jurassic and Cretaceous periods. Ammonites came in many different sizes and shapes, and some were so bizarre that they'll make you ask, how the hell did these things even function? Well, to answer that, most of those ammonites, what are known as heteromorphs, were slow filter feeders. But other, more conventionally shaped ammonites, like the Sphenodiscids, were faster and more agile predators feeding on free-swimming prey. Like all cephalopods alive today, they use jet propulsion to move and are able to control their buoyancy via osmosis, filling their shells with water or gas to sink or surface in the water column. With those most basic of facts in mind, how do we translate them into tools to buff Omastar? The first real inkling that came to my mind when attempting to do so were the Sphenodiscids. Given their more streamlined body plan and greater agility, the move Flip Turn, a water-type move that switches the user out and is distributed to many maneuverable water-type Pokemon, was the first thing that came to mind. It helps Omastar reposition out of bad matchups while also dealing a little bit of chip damage, an excellent tool for gaining momentum in a battle. Also, since Omastar is kind of a catch-all representation of ammonites as a whole despite not superficially resembling many of them, I personally think this addition works. But that's not all. I have some more factoids you can chew on. Coleoid or shellless cephalopods have strong regenerative capabilities, to the point that they can grow back arms and parts of their central nervous system. While the most basal cephalopod alive today, the nautilus, can only repair part of its hood and shell over an extended period of time, ammonites are more closely related to coleoids despite retaining an external shell. So it isn't out of the possibility that they could potentially regenerate tissue beyond their shells, the latter of which we have direct evidence for. Knowing this, granting Omastar and, frankly, all cephalopod Pokemon access to recover is well warranted. The last major buff for Omastar revolves around another renowned cephalopod trait, inking. Hence, the addition of Octazooka to Omastar's repertoire. Now, Ammonite experts that are somehow watching this, I know. The presence of ink sacs in ammonites is debated and largely unsupported as of right now. But for the sake of adding one extra buff, I'm including it anyways because I have a really cool redesign for this middling move. When deployed to confuse predators, the ink is released from the ink sac and dispersed by a jet of water from the animal's siphon. Note that last bit. Because jet propulsion requires a liquid medium, we can make Octazooka a priority move in rain. Just tweak the properties a little bit and boom! A Grassy Glide semi-clone. Access to a strong priority move should be an obvious benefit to Omastar, helping bypass its low speed and augment its effectiveness as a rain sweeper. While seemingly counterintuitive with Swift Swim, the ability to strike first against those aforementioned Choice Scarf users helps increase Omastar's threat potential and overall consistency. So yeah, that's how I'd buff Omastar with science. I think you get the gist of what I'm trying to accomplish here, right? Also, wow, that was almost 6 minutes. I swear the rest of these segments will be shorter. Kabutops is an interesting case. Like Omastar, it's a rock and water type with the ability Swift Swim, albeit a physical attacker with lower bulk but higher speed. That speed stat is crucial, as it allows Kabutops to outrun more opponents in rain, increasing its threat level. It's also not just all about raw power and speed either. Kabutops has some other excellent qualities as well, like access to Rapid Spin to remove hazards, Knock Off to remove held items, Flip Turn for pivoting around, and Swords Dance to further boost its already great attack stat. However, it faces some really stiff competition as a physical rain sweeper with the likes of Floatzel, Basculegion, and Barraskewda, who all pack more immediate power. Kabutops can be played outside of rain thanks to its deep utility move pool, but it's only really viable in the lower tiers where it resides currently. It can perform extremely well under the right circumstances and team compositions, but it's still niche overall, especially in the recent generations. But we can fix it. I was initially going to double down on Kabutops' access to many high crit ratio moves and its sides, but I've since come up with something even more intriguing. Kabutops and its pre-evolution Kabuto are based on horseshoe crabs, or Kabutogani in Japanese, and if you know anything about these guys, their blue blood probably saved you at one point in your life. Being arthropods, horseshoe crabs have an open circulatory system, meaning their blood flows freely through their body cavity and comes in direct contact with tissues. This makes them more vulnerable to pathogens compared to animals with a closed circulatory system, as they can spread more quickly. Luckily, they pack what are known as amoebocytes, which initiate an enzyme cascade that creates a blood clot, neutralizing the infection. What's special about these amoebocytes is that they are incredibly effective in detecting endotoxins, a major contaminant that results from killing bacteria. The discovery of horseshoe crab amoebocytes in the 1950s made major waves in the field of medicine, and has become a standard to detect these foreign bodies in the form of the LAL test. A synthetic version has been created which aims to alleviate the heavy pressures of overharvesting these animals, but it has been extremely slow to be adopted by the medical industry due to regulatory and safety concerns. Why am I not surprised? Because of this, I'm going to grant Kabutops a new ability to replace battle armor. Immunity was the first one that came to mind, granting an immunity to the poison status effect, but that's boring. How about Poison Heal? Admittedly a bit of a stretch, but Poison Heal combined with a Toxic Orb grants Kabutops some amazing benefits. A pseudo-immunity to other status effects, a boosted facade, and most importantly, greater longevity to play its utility-based game. One set I thought of was a defensive sword stance set that leverages Kabutops' useful resistances and good defense stat to set up on a passive wall or any Pokemon that can hit it for super effective, in similar vein to the other Poison Heal Pokemon, Breloom and Gliscor. Wearing it down with passive damage or status is just not an option thanks to Poison Heal, and Kabutops is still naturally strong enough to 2-hit KO many neutral targets after a single Swords Dance. Stone Edge accuracy willing anyway. If Poison Heal is too out there for you, we can always refer back to the auto crit concept I mentioned earlier and still do some dumb stuff like, I don't know, 2-shot Tangrowth with a Stone Edge at +2 attack? Along with a few new moves like Taunt, Aqua Cutter, Ice Spinner, Close Combat, and most importantly, Wave Crash, these additions should make Kabutops more self-sufficient and carry more value in a team slot beyond being a strong rain abuser and a decent utility mon. Actually, even without any of these ability changes I proposed, just giving it Wave Crash will probably be enough to launch it back to its former glory. Seriously, it hits really different under rain. Brave Bird. Just give this thing Brave Bird. And Head Smash while you're at it. Aerodactyl desperately needs moves to abuse Rockhead with that isn't the non-stab takedown and double edge. I don't even have anything science related for this section to justify my reasoning, so have this factoid on screen instead. Just give it those 2 moves and we'll be good. Okay? Before we talk about Cradily's battle prowess, I really want to discuss its real-life inspirations cause they honestly deserve much more attention. Crinoids. Despite their plant-like appearance, these feathery-looking things are actually animals. Echinoderms specifically, related to starfish, sea urchins, and sea cucumbers. Also known as sea lilies, which is why Cradily is partially grass type, these suspension feeders anchor themselves to the sea floor and other surfaces, and use their numerous arms on top of a long stalk to filter out plankton and detritus that flow within the water column. They aren't beholden to this sedentary lifestyle though. Unlike most plants, they can move. Very slowly, that is. But some, namely the feather stars, take it up a notch and can freely swim. If you've ever been on the internet, you've probably seen viral videos of these things already. But look at this. It's mesmerizing. But you want to know what's even cooler than this? Their blood. Or lack thereof. What? Yeah, they don't have blood because they use seawater to operate their vascular system. Hence Cradily's hidden ability, Storm Drain. On top of this, they can also regenerate, like a lot of other echinoderms. And you know what's even better? Crinoids have been around for nearly 500 million years, living through every past mass extinction, and living longer than the likes of the non-avian dinosaurs, trilobites, ammonites, and possibly even land plants. They of course have a rich fossil record as well, with some species, like Cyrocrinus, forming gargantuan barges on driftwood and even growing to lengths of 26 meters. That's longer than Eternatus and the average blue whale. Okay, that's enough facts for now. How does Cradily fare in competitive Pokemon? It's fine, I guess? Cradily has a niche as a water-immune rock type thanks to Storm Drain and access to good moves like Recover, Giga Drain, Stealth Rock, and Leech Seed. That last one it didn't receive until Generation 8 cause it technically isn't a plant. The problem is that Cradyly's stats, while well-rounded, just don't quite cut it for a defensive Pokemon. Plus, its unique typing of rock and grass packs 4 weaknesses and only 2 resistances. Cradily has found some fringe uses in VGC as a Rain and Kyogre counter in certain formats, but it's competing with the Storm Drain Pokemon, Gastrodon, which has not 1, but 2 World Championships under its non-existent belt. Fret not, my child, we can help you match the slug. Since I rambled about crinoids for a good minute and a half earlier, we can get straight to the buffs. The first is a new one, a simple stat redistribution. Nothing major, just relocating 10 total base speed to boost Cradyly's defense and special defense to reach 102 and 112 respectively. The second is a new ability. You know how the Gen 1 fossil duo have 3 abilities at their disposal? Let's give Cradily 1 more to be on par with them. Regenerator. Just like fellow Echinoderm Toxapex, the increased longevity from this ability helps it stick around in battle and just be annoying spamming Leech Seeds and getting up Stealth Rock for its team. Third, some new moves. Hydro Pump is a stronger water type option compared to Brine given their hydraulic vascular system, and Power Gem, a rock type special attack with perfect accuracy. Actually, on the topic of Power Gem, basically all special attacking fossil mons should get it. Seriously. It's stronger than Ancient Power, doesn't require a charge turn like Meteor Beam, and most importantly, won't miss. And finally, one last addition not really based on anything, but one I thought would be neat. Strength Sap. Cradily is now immortal. Fitting for a group of animals that have thrived for nearly 500 million years. Big Stall will never die. Yep, I'm buffing both. Because I can. Armaldo is just mid. It packs a great attack stat, but everything else about it is just not very good. Meh bulk, poor speed, and a defensive typing that doesn't do much for it at all. Armaldo's abilities are also unimpactful too. It can't make much use of Swift Swim because of its sub-Omastar speed stat, and Battle Armor is nice to avoid critical hits, but it doesn't help much with its game plan. What is its central game plan? That's a really good question, cause Armaldo doesn't really have one? It has some cute stuff like Knockoff, Rapid Spin, Stealth Rock, and Swords Dance, but you know who else has all those moves and is infinitely better? Kabutops. So yeah, Armaldo needs help. Thankfully, their real-life inspiration can provide a wealth of ideas. Anorith and Armaldo are based on none other than Anomalocaris, an extinct Cambrian radiodont famous for being one of nature's first top-order predators. Anomalocaris is, needless to say, a very strange creature, one I hope to discuss more in depth in a future video. There are two facets of Anomalocaris we can look into to buff the Anorith line, its lifestyle and predatory adaptations. See, until recently, the traditional thinking was that Anomalocaris stuck close to the seafloor and used its grasping appendages to break through the biomineralized exoskeletons of trilobites, shaking them to exploit points of weaknesses and splitting them. Fossilized feces have been described with bits of trilobite within them, and round or W-shaped bite marks found on some specimens seem to support this hypothesis. However, a 2023 paper re-examined Anomalocaris' appendages and found that, no, they were not capable of crushing through biomineralized shells. What was found instead pointed to a different mode of predation. When outstretched, the appendages produce minimal drag when swimming, which combined with the undulating flaps on the side of the creature's body pointed to Anomalocaris being a fast, free-swimming hunter that preyed on soft-bodied animals. Not to mention, its compound eyes were also adapted to facilitate this lifestyle, having over 24,000 lenses, rivaling modern dragonflies in complexity, enabling it to easily detect prey in sunlit waters. You can probably tell where I'm going with this. A hefty move pool expansion is now in order. Considering Anomalocaris' adaptations for free swimming, granting Anorith and Armaldo access to more useful water-type moves beyond Aqua Jet and Liquidation for the latter is a good start. Things like Aqua Cutter and Wave Crash are good options. Flip Turn and U-Turn encompasses Anomalocaris' agility and enable these Pokemon to pivot around while dealing damage. Perfectly fits Anorith's hit-and-run playstyle, and lets Armaldo slow pivot out and get in its teammates safely. And lastly, wanna ambush something with great speed, or perhaps priority? First Impression. Helps bypass Armaldo's poor speed and abuse its high attack stat to the fullest against offensive teams. To bring these buffs in line with what I gave Cradily, I'll also redistribute Armaldo's stats and grant it a new ability. +5 into its defenses from its useless special attack stat is nice, and I'll be adding the amazing Tough Claws ability. Wait, hold on. Didn't you say that Anomalocaris can't break through mineralized material? Why give it Tough Claws when their claws weren't that tough by comparison? Yes, I did say that. But in context of Armaldo and Anorith's design, their claws appear to be mineralized cause rock type, and Armaldo's distinction as the plate Pokemon. Plate as in external armor. But also consider the prospect of Tough Claws boosted knockoffs, U-turns, wave crashes, and first impressions. In a way, this new Armaldo is kind of a side grade to the original first impression user, Golisopod. Where Golisopod packs greater overall bulk and a much better defensive typing, Armaldo has greater offensive potential, reliable pivoting, and hazard control through Rapid Spin, which is also boosted by Tough Claws. As for Anorith, it'll probably shred Little Cup to ribbons now. And now we have a duo of menacing Marginocephalians. Actually, scratch the menacing part. They're both pretty pathetic. Rampardos and Bastiodon are the poster children for Pokemon that just don't work in a competitive context. One is a slow glass cannon, while the other is a stone wall that's as passive as the language used in a formal lab report. Rampardos' offensive move pool isn't even bad. It packs perfect coverage between Fire Punch, Earthquake, and his choice of Rock Stab, and nothing wants to switch in on something with an attack stat eclipsing that of Groudon and Slacking. The problem is that Rampardos is both slow and frail at the same time. Now, you can be slow and still be a great offensive Pokemon, but you also can't be frail, lest you get outsped and one-shot by a Snivy. That is a real calc, by the way. And to add a literal injury to insult, its strongest move, the 150 base power Head Smash, deals recoil to half the damage done to the target. Very strange, considering the Cranidos line is based on the Pachycephalosaurs. You know, the family of dinosaurs with fortified domes to protect themselves in head-butting confrontations, of which we have direct evidence for in multiple species? So why doesn't it have Rockhead as an ability? At least it won't suffer a grade 3 concussion with Rockhead. Like many of the fossil mons before, granting Rampardos a priority move can alleviate its immediate speed issue. But does Rampardos really look like a creature with good burst movement? I don't think so. Is what I would have said if I didn't come up with a brand new move just for this occasion. Enter Dome Strike, a rock-type clone of Sucker Punch. This one's a bit out there, but the idea here is that Rampardos is playing a bait and punish game, intercepting before an attack comes out or flanking its opponents by swinging its head into the target's side, the latter being a possible behavior for Pachycephalosaurs. Dome Strike being a Sucker Punch clone means Rampardos won't pose an immediate sweeping threat given its prediction-reliant nature, but it does give it recourse against faster opposing offense that would otherwise run it over. Oh yeah, Rampardos does have access to Swords Dance, so take that as you will. Bastiodon, on the other hand, is just there. While its defensive stats are incredible, the rest are pretty much non-existent, granting it nearly no offensive presence. Its Rock Steel typing, while packing 8 resistances and an immunity, is completely offset by its weaknesses to water, ground, and fighting, some of the best offensive types in the game, the latter two being 4x weaknesses. On the flip side, its utility move pool is quite good, until you realize that taunting it completely shuts it down, leaving Bastiodon to directly attack the opposition with these offensive stats. To be fair though, Bastiodon was buffed in Gen 9 with newfound access to Body Press and a few other moves so it can actually threaten some damage, but the core issues still remain. Not gonna lie, trying to buff this thing according to science was kind of hard because the animals this mon is based off of, the Chasmosaurian Ceratopsians, were anything but passive walls. And like the Pachycephalosaurs, have pathological evidence for head-to-head combat. So sticking with the theme of using your head, here are 2 buffs for Bastiodon. The first is a brand new ability I call Guard Up or Fortify. This ability ignores moves and other abilities that can break through protection, things like Feint, Phantom Force, and Unseen Fist. That means Unbreakable protects and Wide Guards to help support its team and increase Bastiodon's longevity via its impenetrable face. The second is a brand new move, Shield Bash. The shield in question? Bastiodon's face. Again! The user quickly bashes the opponent with a shield to make them flinch. It only works the first time each time the user enters battle. Basically, Steel-type Fake Out, but better. Okay, not exactly better since it's only +2 priority instead of +3, but still, at least these new additions can help Bastiodon do something in VGC. That said though, Aegislash and Zamazenta would also have access to this move, so stay losing Bastiodon. Oh hey, you're still here. We're over halfway through the video, but I thought we could do something fun down in the comments section. I got 2 questions for you guys to answer below. One for the general audience, and another for the nerdier paleontology folks, who I hope are watching. The first being, how many different Pokemon cries, including this one, played throughout the whole video? Not too bad, right? The second, nerdier question, however, Name every single museum I used as a backdrop in this video. Whoever answers both correctly first will have their comment pinned for all to see. Good luck! Okay, back to our scheduled programming. At long last, our final rock and water fossilmon. Carracosta is, sadly, the least viable of the water rock swift swimmers covered thus far. Despite having good stats and 3 great abilities in solid rock, sturdy, and, well, you know the last one, it fails to make things happen due in part to its poor special bulk and kind of shallow move pool. It does get Shell Smash, but it's not going to do much with its sub-Toxup-X speed stat, even with Aqua Jet, thus leaving Carracosta outclassed by most other water rock types, including Omastar and Kabutops. There's not much else I could say about it competitively beyond that, unfortunately. Carracosta still has potential. I mean, that defense stat and solid rock look really promising. It just lacks the necessary tools to distinguish itself right now. But hey, that's why I made this video. Admittedly, there is not that much to pull from Carracosta's primary inspirations, the giant protostegid sea turtles. I couldn't find much stuff on their paleobiology, and the stuff I did find overlap in design space with another fossilmon coming later. So I'll spout like 3 facts about this group of animals, then move on to the buffs. Protostegids are perhaps most famous for their immense adult sizes, with the largest, Archelon, being the largest turtle known to science. Which is funny, cause Carracosta is only 3'11", putting it on the smaller end of known protostegids. Many of them seem to be at least partially carnivorous, thanks in part to their strong beaks and jaws, and at least one genera, Notochelinae from Australia, has preserved bivalves in its gut. The one really weird exception to the strong jaw rule is Oshpechelon, whose pipette-like snout enabled it to suction feed, a feeding method not seen in any other sea turtle. Protostegids are also compared to modern leatherback sea turtles, as their carapace was leathery and lightweight to make aquatic travel more efficient compared to the bony shells of other sea turtles. Despite this shared trait, they aren't actually that closely related. Protostegidae is a sister clade to the superfamily that contains all modern sea turtles, Cheloneoidea, and they split off from each other sometime during the early Cretaceous, millions of years before the family that gave rise to the leatherback, Dermacolidae, evolved. Meaning, these two groups convergently evolved their leathery shells. Alright, that's 3 facts and counting, now on to the buffs. Wave Crash makes thematic sense since protostegids were a marine species that would have made some transoceanic crossings throughout their evolutionary history, and grants Carracosta a strong physical stab option. Flip Turn, given how the leatherback is the most hydrodynamic sea turtle, grants Carracosta a pivot option that synergizes with its low speed to bring in partners safely. Rapid Spin enables Carracosta to remove hazards for its team like many other turtle Pokemon, and extra coverage options in Body Press and Ice Spinner that synergize well with its stats and typing. There is also one more new move I created to add to Carracosta's toolkit, but I'm introducing it later with the original Pokemon it was initially designed for, so keep watching. These additions should help grant Carracosta new ways to be effective in battle beyond just being a poor man's Omastar or Dreadnought. Will it still be outclassed? Maybe, but hey, any improvement is an improvement. Also, since we're still on the topic of water rock types, Relicanth. Give this fish Wave Crash and Flip Turn. Just saying. Oh, Archeops. What a thoroughly tragic being you are. Look at its stats. Yeah, its bulk is next to non-existent, but notice the 110 speed, 112 special attack, and 140 attack stat. All 3 of them higher than Salamence. And it's got good moves too. Rock Slide, Stone Edge, Earthquake, Earth Power, Dual Wing Beat, Acrobatics, U-Turn, Taunt, Stealth Rock, Knockoff, the list goes on. This thing is fast, obscenely strong, and can support its team with impunity. How on earth did this thing not destroy the game when it came into existence? Simple. Defeatist. Halves the Pokemon's attack and special attack stats when its HP drops to half or less. On a Pokemon with a Stealth Rock weakness and paper thin defenses? Yeah, never mind. Welcome to the deliberately made worse by its ability club with Slacking and Regigigas. Now, don't get it twisted. Unlike those 2 normal types, Archeops has been a great lower tier Pokemon in 6v6 singles ever since it was introduced despite Defeatist. But let's be real here. If this bird had an actual ability, it would have made the Generation 5 games the easiest in the entire series once you revive this thing at Necreed City. Spoiler alert, I am not removing Defeatist for better or worse. Instead, I'll introduce more ways to play around it. Archeops and Archen take direct inspiration from one of the most important taxa in dinosaur and bird paleontology, Archaeopteryx, once considered to be the first bird, though that title has since been taken by other geologically older paravians. But those pennaceous feathers on Archeops' hind limbs also reference another paravian, the four-winged dromaeosaur, Microraptor. Due to having 4 functional wings, studies published after Microraptor's description in 2000 have attempted to answer whether or not this creature could actually fly, with proposals ranging from basic gliding to true powered flight. As of the mid to late 2010s, evidence from its skeletal anatomy, preserved feathers, flight potential, and even trackways from related taxa all support the now accepted interpretation that Microraptor was indeed a competent flyer and not a strict glider. Which is really significant considering that Microraptor lacked many of the advanced flight adaptations seen in more derived paravians. In fact, it evolved powered flight independently from the lineage that gave rise to birds. And what's more, other studies on Microraptor's diet and ecology points it to being analogous to a modern bird of prey. A skilled aerial predator that actively hunted and captured prey on the wing. Oh, by the way, many of these sources I'm listing off feature an old advisor of mine, paleobiologist Dr. Michael Pittman. His work is very cool. But back to Archeops. I think we can up its flying game a bit after learning that information, yeah? I won't be giving it Brave Bird since Archeops is still canonically a poor flyer and the move could put it into Defeatist range via recoil damage. But why worry about falling into Defeatist range when you can simply attack first? Well, whenever the opponent does anyways. Enter Aerial Ambush, a flying type clone of what else? Sucker Punch. Considering Microraptor's raptorial affinities, as well as Archeops' Pokemon Moondex entry, I feel it makes sense that it can perform a surprise attack on an unsuspecting victim. Much like Dome Strike for Rampardos, Aerial Ambush being a Sucker Punch clone means Archeops won't pose an immediate sweeping threat given its prediction-reliant nature. But it does give it recourse against faster opposing offense and priority that would otherwise drop it into Defeatist range. This alone will probably shoot Archeops up a tier in viability, but if we really want to go a smidge overkill, why not give this thing Swords Dance too? It's obviously a very high risk considering Archeops' poor bulk, but hey, if Generation 9 has taught me anything, if you want to make a comeback, when in doubt, become King Gambit. We have arrived at peak. Listen, if you honestly think Tyrantrum is a bad or even mid design, we cannot be friends. It and Tyrant are perfect stylizations of Tyrannosaurus, and if you don't agree, let's just say your rights to have an opinion are now revoked. As for Tyrantrum's battle prowess though, while not bad per se, it's mostly a lower tier lifer, though it is still a force to be reckoned with. Tyrantrum's biggest draw is its raw power, appropriate for a mon based on the heaviest terrestrial predator known to science. Sporting a great attack stat, solid boosting options, and high-powered moves like Earthquake, Close Combat, Outrage, Scale Shot, and a recoilless Head Smash thanks to Rockhead, Tyrantrum is basically what Rampardos wished it could be, and more. Oh, small aside, headbutting is actually a very plausible behavior for T-Rex and large theropods in general. See Dr. Mark Whitten's blog post for more on that. Tyrantrum is very difficult to counter defensively thanks to its crazy immediate damage output. But like other fossil mons, it can struggle against faster team compositions if not positioned well. Its biggest drawbacks are its 6 weaknesses, poor special bulk, and its speed, which is mediocre at best, limiting its opportunities to safely fire off that head smash. Also, head smash being 80% accurate hurts its consistency, something I know very personally. I honestly don't think I need to formally introduce you guys to the most famous dinosaur taxa known to man, so let's just skip right to the buffs and changes. increasing Tyrantrum's base speed is an option, but it can already remedy that without sacrificing too much power. And Tyrannosaurus, specifically the giant adults, while not ponderous, can't actually keep pace with a Jeep, so base 71 fits. I think fixing its consistency issue is the way to go instead. But how do we do that? Well, Tyrantrum and his pre-evolution Tyron have another ability, one they introduced to the Pokemon series, Strongjaw, which boosts the power of biting moves like Crunch by 50%. Unfortunately, the duo never received a biting move with same type attack bonus to capitalize on the damage boost, unlike the later introduced Mega Sharpedo, Bruxish, and a certain other Fossilmon. But that's about to change. Here, we can represent two major facets of Tyrannosaur feeding behavior. You might want to look away if you're squeamish. The Crunch, and the Rip and Swallow. The Crunch highlights T-Rex's insane bite force, reaching 35,000 newtons, or nearly 4 tons. Combine this with 3 or 4 point loading and the serrations on their deeply rooted teeth to propagate cracks in hard material, an adult Rex can easily pierce armor and, make bone explode. This is represented with this new move, which I don't have a name for yet. Bone Crusher? Osteophagy? I don't know. The kicker here is that this move always lowers the defense stat of rock and steel types, aka armored targets. It's also the extra move Carracosta would get considering it preys on Ammonite and Omastar. The Rip and Swallow, on the other hand, accounts for T-Rex's giant maw and ability to manipulate and consume unholy amounts of flesh and bone in one go, in a behavior called inertial feeding. And this aspect is represented with another new move, one I actually have a name for, Dragon Eater, a dragon-type draining move boosted by Strongjaw. These two moves grant Tyrantrum incredible benefits beyond their already obscene raw power. Dropping the defense stat of rock and especially steel-type Pokemon limits traditional counterplay to Tyrantrum and opens up many targets to a strong coverage moves. And Dragon Eater provides Tyrantrum some longevity in the form of HP recovery, potentially granting it more opportunities to attack. Of note, after being boosted by Strongjaw, these new moves' base power jump from 85 to 127 before stab. Still weaker than Hit Smash, but it's still two-shot Skarmory with a Choice Band, and more importantly, won't miss. Sue! Okay, let's make these final segments a bit quicker because I've held you hostage for long enough. Aurorus is one of the few select Pokemon to have access to Snow Warning, an ability that sets up the hail weather condition, which, like Rain covered earlier, provides various benefits to a team, such as activating certain abilities, letting the move Blizzard bypass accuracy checks, and allows Aurora Veil to be used, granting the effects of both Light Screen and Reflect in one turn. All 4 Snow Warning Pokemon have access to this move, but each distinguish themselves by having unique traits. In Aurorus' case, Stealth Rock and Perfect Offensive Coverage is its calling card. Unfortunately, Aurorus is considered one of, if not the least viable of the Snow Warning Pokemon, thanks to its main and crippling weaknesses, its speed and defensive profile. Speed is self-explanatory, but you might think, strange? Its overall bulk seems pretty good, what's wrong? The problem is that its defensive typing is awful. Avert your eyes, lest you bear witness to one of the worst type combos, period. And if that wasn't bad enough, this is another, albeit the final case, of the Pokemon's primary inspirations not providing many ideas for new gameplay elements. At least ones that mesh with Aurorus' concept. That inspiration being the Dicraeosaur sauropod, Amargasaurus. Much of the literature published on this small sauropod specifically mostly center around how its neck works and what those strange elongated neurospines were like in life. 2 reconstructions are often proposed based on which line of evidence scientists support. The spines being covered by a sheath of keratin forming a horn, or the spines were supporting 2 parallel skin sails. Though that mystery is likely solved in a paper published in 2022 that analyzed the structure, morphology, and microanatomy of these spines and suggested that these spines were likely, if not exclusively, covered in a sail of skin, which retroactively makes Aurorus anatomically accurate to a degree. Even Aurorus' designer commented on this paper 2 days after its publication. But back to Aurorus. I need to find some other source of inspiration to improve its battle prowess. Luckily, that's easy. Its Pokemon Widex entry states, it can instantly create a wall of ice to block an opponent's attack. Would be a shame if I'll just cut to the chase. Ice Blockade, an Ice-type clone of Protect, but with a twist. Under Hail, or what is as of Generation 9 known as Snow, it also protects all allies, and not just from spread moves, unlike Wide Guard. Sounds unholy, I know, but like Protect, its chances of failing still rises if used in succession, and is crucially dependent on Snow being active, lest it fails to protect Aurorus' teammate. Though with Snow Warning, if you're facing a weatherless team in a VGC match, it's invaluable, especially with Snow granting all Ice types a 50% boost to their defense stat. And this isn't even accounting for potential Aurora Veil support. Still need to look out for Aurorus' smorgasbord of weaknesses, but if this single addition means it can break into the cutthroat world of VGC, I'm all for it. And now, our final segment. Yeah, I don't think we need to buff these guys much at all. Dracozolt is already a strong Sand Rush abuser thanks to Bolt Beak doubling in power when moving first. Same with Arctozolt, albeit with Slush Rush and no Miss Blizzards in Hail. Dracovish was banned to Ubers in singles, and Arctovish, okay, it's not good, but at least it has a small niche with Slush Rush and Fish's Rend doubling in power when moving first like Bolt Beak. Honestly, some basic move additions along with the mechanical changes brought in Generation 9 is all that's needed to keep this quartet relevant should they return in the future. Moves like Trailblaze and Temper Flare for Dracozolt, Ice Spinner for the Arcto duo, and the 50% defense boost to Ice types granted by Snow seriously helps out the Arcto duo when backed by a Snow Warning or Chilly Reception user. There's not much else for me to say about the Galar Fossils, so to end off this final section, here's a neat observation I made a while back concerning Dracovish. Mr. Fish here is revived by combining the fossilized fish and drake, which are only comprised of a head and hindquarters for their respective fossils. But I believe there is a specific reason why these parts only occur in partial form. It should be emphasized that the vast majority of extinct organisms are mostly only known from partial or fragmentary remains. Even some of the most famous taxa, like Brachiosaurus for example, are only known from what you see on screen, and the rest is informed from other more complete specimens of closely related animals. This is the case for Dracovish's primary inspirations as well, Dunkleosteus, and two British stegosaurs, Dacentruus and Lexovisaurus. Dunkleosteus is mostly only known from its armored skull and thoracic shield, while the holotype specimens of Dacentruus and Lexovisaurus consist of a postcranial skeleton mostly comprised of their sacral region. And well, just look at Dracovish. Dunk's skull and thoracic shield, and stego postcrania. Okay, the postcranial material of the stegosaurs don't 100% match the drake portion since they're missing most of their tail vertebrae, but hey, it's still a neat coincidence. And with that, after 348 days and a whole school year, I finally freaking finished this monolith of a documentary. Oh my god! Hey, thanks for watching. I kid you not when I say this project took 11 plus months to complete. Blame undergrad purgatory halting my workflow for weeks at a time. There are some parts of the script I would have changed, and you can even notice my style of editing subtly changed throughout the video's duration with how much time has gone by. But now that it's finally done, what do you think? Were these additions reasonable? Did you learn something new? Were you able to answer the 2 questions I prompted at the halfway mark? Let me know in the comments down below. And you know the drill, like and subscribe so you won't miss whenever I upload my next video. And before I go, a special thanks to these people here for their artistic contributions to this project. Turret for the animatics of my self-insert, the Online Ninja for the Flutter Mane, and Gabriel for the Anomalocaris, Archelon, and Dunkleosteus I commissioned a couple years ago for a project that kinda died because of uni. With that, I'll see you guys then. God damn it.